Now, the program to help you and your family get fit and stay fit with a biblical foundation without a one-size-fits-all plan. It's Faith Family Fitness with your host, Full Armor Sports and national champion coach, Jason Lupo.
Welcome, you are listening to 100.7 The Word. This is Faith Family Fitness, and I am your host, Jason Lupo. This show is about you, your family, your health, and most importantly, your faith. And every week, we will give you information to get healthy as a family, strengthen your relationship with your kids, and root yourself deeper into the Word of God. Today, we are going to be discussing your brain and our mindset and how it impacts our performance and our ability to go about our everyday lives and perform at an elite level. Last week, we talked about training principles and we talked about how they apply, and we related it to God's intelligent design. And so we're going to continue that theory, we're going to continue that thinking this week as we talk about the brain and our mindset and how it relates to God's intelligent design for us and our ability to perform at an extremely high level. We hope that you continue to join us every week as we continue to talk about the body and the remarkable things that it does in your fitness journey and how you can improve your health, but also how you can improve your relationship with your kids and your relationship with God. And so today, later in this segment, we are also going to have Julie Park, who is the founder of Great American Outpost, and she's going to be talking to us about a phenomenal community event happening this Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. at Fervent Church, and she'll give us more information on that. But for now, we are going to take a brief time out, and we'll continue talking about our amazing body and our brain.
Thanks for listening to Faith Family Fitness, a presentation of Full Armor Sports Teams. Teamwork is at the core of any successful organization. Full Armor Sports, led by national champion coach Jason Lupo, is now registering for school year sports programs. Full Armor is a multi-sport teaching and training organization with homeschool options available. All of Full Armor sports coaches are certified and experts in their field. Full Armor's coaches combine for over 500 years of coaching experience. They will help your kids gain fundamental skills, the concepts of teamwork, essential to being successful throughout their lives. Multiple sports options are available now, from swimming, softball and volleyball, to powerlifting and youth MMA. The faith-based approach to making sports fun and productive are a great choice for your kids at Full Armor Sports Teams. Learn more at fullarmorsportsteams.com.
All right, welcome back. This is Faith Family Fitness. Today we are talking about our mindsets and our brains and how they relate to performance and also our everyday lives and our relationship with God. A number of years ago, a man named Dan Coyle wrote a book called The Talent Code. He's got a TED Talk and wrote a book. He also has a phenomenal 60-minute segment on his book, The Talent Code. And what Dan Coyle did was he set out to find out why there were certain hotbeds of talent throughout the country and what they did different than everybody else. And so he went to a tennis club in Russia, and he went to one of the most prominent musical schools in the country and tried to figure out why some of the top performers came out of those schools and how they were different than everybody else. And so what he came up with and what he started talking about was this idea of myelin. And the myelin sheath wraps around the nerve, and basically it's a conductor for the nerve. So it allows the nerve and impulses to transmit faster throughout the body. And so if you've ever heard of MS is the deterioration of this myelin sheath. And so basically nerve impulses do not travel as fast in people with MS. And over time, their body starts breaking down. And so what Dan Coyle found, and I'm not going to give you the entire book, but what he found was the places that produce these enormous amounts of talent, they do things in a way that reinforce the correct neural pathways. And so we talked last week about our training programs and our training principles and how over time, at first, all of our improvement in the training world and our fitness world is very neuromuscular. So it's our body and our brain telling our body to work a little bit harder by sending more nerve impulses, basically recruiting more muscle units, motor units in the muscle. And so the best way to kind of get this image of motor unit recruitment and how our brain tells our body how much work we need to do is I want you to picture this. Okay, you walk in the refrigerator, you want a glass of milk, so you pull out the milk jug, and you think the milk jug is completely full. But the milk jug isn't completely full. And so you go to grab it, and all of a sudden, you pick it up, and the milk jug goes flying, right? Our brain has told our body that we need to recruit more motor units because this object is heavy. And how it turns out is the object really isn't that heavy, and so we've recruited more motor units than we need to. But that's a perfect example of how our brain talks to our body. The other thing is, it's late at night, right? You're walking down the steps, you think that there's an extra step, and so our brain is telling our body, if there's an extra step, we need to do certain things, and there's not. And then you end up, your knees buckle, maybe you hit the ground. Hopefully you don't hit the ground. But just a great idea and a great example of how this motor unit recruitment works and how our brain correlates with our body. And so with that, when we're talking about these myelin sheath and laying down myelin and correct motor neural pathways, when we do things over and over in repetition, we are laying down myelin. We are making the body more efficient at doing those patterns. And so it's a super unique book. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend you just quickly Google Dan Coyle TED Talk, listen to it. It's not that long and it will change your life. Almost every group of athletes I've ever coached, we have listened to this TED Talk with our athletes. But our brain is super powerful. And I think that's the ultimate point that I want to get through on today's show. Our brain is super powerful. Our brain is so powerful that we can train literally without moving. We can train without moving. There's a process called visualization. And visualization has been a hot topic in the sports psychology world for many years. But even watching somebody perform a task causes our motor cortex in our brain to send signals down the same pathways that would be used if we were actually doing the exercise or doing the movement. And so the original study on visualization came from Dr. Biaslato out of the University of Chicago. And what he did was he had 3 groups. He had 3 groups of basketball players, and for 30 days, he had each group do something different. The first group, he told them, look, go home, don't practice, don't touch a basketball, just come back in 30 days and shoot some more free throws. And then the second group, he said, hey, I want you guys to go home, and I want you guys to shoot basketballs from the free throw line for 30 minutes every single day. And then the last group, he said, I want you to go home, and I want you to spend 30 minutes each day visualizing successful free throws. So visualizing that basketball go in that basket every single time from the free throw line. What are you doing? Work through in your brain the exact movement for 30 minutes every day. And what he found was, after 30 days, the first group who didn't practice obviously didn't improve. The results are about the same, no negligible difference. The group that physically practiced every single day improved about 24%. And the group who visualized improved by 23%. So only a 1% difference between the group that physically practiced and the group that was just visualizing. And this study hasn't been recreated in the exact same way, but we've seen the study in other things as well. And so there was a small study produced at the Cleveland Clinic that studied the strength gains made through physical or mental training over 12 weeks. And they had participants either physically perform the task or mentally envision themselves going through the actions. And they did finger abduction, which is spreading apart the fingers, and elbow flexion, or what we would think of as the bicep curl. And the group that physically did the exercise saw more increase in strength, about 35% increase on finger abduction strength, and 13.5% increase in elbow flexion strength, just from visualizing the activity. The group that actually did the activity did a little bit better than the group that was just visualizing, because obviously the strength gains. But it goes back to this idea of this motor cortex motor unit recruitment and how much of the muscle are we recruiting to do a certain task. And just the idea of visualizing the task that we want to do is going to allow us to continue to improve. This brain-body connection is extremely powerful, and it extends beyond just movement. Our emotions come into play, our beliefs of what we can achieve. There's a saying, winning is contagious and losing is contagious. Which one are you going to choose? And when I think about mental strength, mental toughness, I oftentimes think about golf. And I'll tell you, I'm not a golfer. I always tell people I have moments of greatness in my golf game, greatly overshadowed by the not-so moments of greatness. But I love watching golf. And this weekend is the FedEx Cup Championship, and you can bet money on it that I will be watching, because I love seeing how these players respond to tough situations. Because golf is extremely unique. Number one rule is you play it where it lies. You don't have the ability to change anything. Where that ball goes, you're going to play it from. It could be on top of a root. It could be in deep grass. You've seen players, Jordan Spieth, phenomenal shot earlier in the year. He's like hanging over the edge of this cliff, and they've got this terrifying shot of this drone footage of him trying to hit this ball, and you just see a drop off. He's like on the edge trying to hit this ball. And so these golfers are extremely mentally tough. And it's really unique because they play for 4 days. And all 4 days count. Every single day counts. 18 holes. They're on the course for 4 hours a day. And every moment counts. And so it's hard when we talk about winning is contagious and losing is contagious, because you see it. There's a lot of players, they have a bad shot, and they're not able to mentally recover from it. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And then you have the players that hit phenomenal shots, and winning is contagious. And it just keeps getting better and better and better. And very rarely are you able to see players that are able to have a bad hole and recover and then all of a sudden finish out the day phenomenally. And those very few players are typically the players that win on that day. I remember when Jordan Spieth won the Masters a number of years ago. And I'm also a bowler, and it's the same thing. And I've worked with world-class shooting coaches, and it's the same thing. And the mental preparation in a lot of these sports is just as important as the physical preparation. But what our brains tell us is going to impact what we do. And so I had a shirt made. I've said it for a long time. Can't is a cuss word. We tell our kids that. It's the worst 4-letter word in the entire dictionary. Can't is a cuss word. We're not going to say can't. When my kids say can't, I look at them, I go, you're right, you can't. Not with that attitude. Because it has everything to do with attitude. Our bodies are remarkable. We're able to do remarkable things. God's had this extremely intelligent design for our body. And we're called to use it in such a way to honor Him. So when it comes to self-talk, when it comes to our ability to change our own mindset and direct the conversation from can't to maybe I can't yet, what do I need to do to get to that point? And it all comes down to this idea of what fruit does our brain produce? If visualization and mirroring or watching others is so powerful, then what are we putting in our minds? And what are we putting in our children's minds? Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And 2 Timothy 1:7 tells us, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. And so our brains are extremely important, and they produce fruit. And the question is, what fruit are we going to produce with our thoughts? And so today, I have a very special guest. We have Julie Parks here, who is the founder of Great American Outpost. Thanks for coming here. Why don't you give us a little brief summary of what Great American Outpost is.
Sure. Excuse me. So what you said really resonates with me because it is all about training your brain in many ways and training your heart and having an education that honors God. So we started because there's an exodus of people leaving public schools, public schools right now. And you're seeing that people are waking up to what is being taught in schools. And it's so important because, yes, our training our bodies is important, the exercise of our bodies to be strengthened. But we sometimes forget what goes into our brains. And what are we creating? We're creating a generation that is honestly weak, coddled. They don't have a spine. And so we want to create a community of kids who have fortitude and also an understanding of what this country was founded upon. And so the Great American Outpost is a homeschool community. It has a program that has science and math and civics, and we're really engaging with our kids to make sure that they understand biblical citizenship and also to be able to go out into this world with a spine, with a backbone, with fortitude, and just training them, daily, what is going into their minds, how are we giving them the biblical principles that they need to survive what's to come.
Yeah, and repetition is so important. As we talked about, like repetition and doing things over and over the right way is so important. But when we think about some of the things that are going on in our community and in our school system, are we repeating the wrong thing?
Well, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So our kids are really told, I won't get into all the things that they're being told right now, but they're being told that there is really a segregation of sorts, in the way that we believe, the way that we think. And so we have to be careful because I'm a Korean of Korean heritage. And I feel like there is a push to kind of define me as something not just American, and so I want to be really cautious for our children, for, that it's not just about the color of your skin. It's not your orientation or all these things that is just being pushed right now. Why are we forgetting how important history is and math and, how the biblical principles of this country? We are not going to change this country just by politics or by voting somebody in. We're going to change this country with how our children are educated, because they're going to be our future voters. They're going to be the ones who are going to be our future senators, our congressmen, the lawmakers. So we want to give them that foundation that helps them to make the right decisions and to make good decisions for our future. So emphasizing civics, I feel like in the Christian community, a lot of times where we say, oh, politics and religion, they don't mix, but that's not true. God has called us to be engaged as biblical citizens, and he has told us to be world changers, culture changers. And we step back from that responsibility thinking that, oh, we shouldn't get involved in politics. But we absolutely, if not us, then who? And so our children are learning this is not a scary world. This is actually part of discipleship. This is part of who you are created to be. And that's changing the culture, and impacting our political realm, our business realm, all of those things. But that comes with the learning, like you said, the letting our children know first who they are in Christ and who they are called to be, giving them the biblical foundation and principles, a biblical worldview in looking at all of these subjects. Subjects are not just standalone secular things. They are tied in with the sacred. And so we want to make sure that they understand that with everything that we are learning.
Yeah, and I always tell our kids, I say, look, I said, Hitler came to power largely because of the youth in Germany, through Hitler Youth, right? And 100%. So even with our kids, trying to drive the fact that they're important and they can make a difference.
Yes.
Because we've seen it in history.
100%. And you're absolutely right. And Stalin did that as well, right? He had all of these, they both had all of these activities for these youth, so because they knew, they understood that it was that next generation who is going to make a difference. And so we know, and a lot of our eyes have been open to what is being taught in schools right now and our colleges, and honestly, the indoctrination that is in there. So we're really pushing to make sure that we go back to these biblical roots.
Well, and I always tell people, look, it's what we're starting to normalize, right? And that laying of that myelin that Dan Coyle talked about, you look at it from a standpoint of our kids, and we're laying these roots of, well, this is normal. This is normal. This is normal. Right. And it doesn't even matter what it is. Mm-hmm. We're training our kids' brains that things that do not align with our beliefs are now normal.
Right. And we're also training them to react a certain way. So they're reacting with, anger and not being able to have a civil discourse anymore. So I want to get out of that. And so we're teaching logic, fallacies. We're teaching a debate that is reasonable. I really hope that this next generation will make a difference, because freedom might end with this generation.
All right. And I do want to make sure that we talk about this event that we have coming up. What is today?
Yes.
Today from 1 to 4 p.m. at Fervent Church. Mm-hmm. Give us a little bit of information about that.
Yeah. So we really wanted to emphasize the kind of the harmony of what we're doing with faith and freedom and political involvement, I'd rather say civic involvement. So we are hosting not the Great American Outpost, the Turning Point USA Faith Chapter. We are starting that locally at Fervent Church, and we have an event that will help parents as they go back. The students are going back into school. We want to encourage them and empower them and equip them with that just encouragement and giving them the different options that are available here, and also the parental rights, helping you understand your parental rights in school, and giving you different options for how you can homeschool your children.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Julie Parks, founder of Great American Outpost. Make sure to join them at the event from 1 to 4 p.m. today at Fervent Church. I will be there as well, so come say hi. We're going to take a brief time out before we go ahead and wrap up for the day.
Thanks for listening to Faith Family Fitness, a presentation of Full Armor sports teams. Teamwork is at the core of any successful organization. At Full Armor Sports, led by national champion coach Jason Lupo, a Christ-centered approach to sports fundamentals and fitness has earned his company the respect of athletes and their parents. Full Armor Sports is committed to helping youth in our community experience growth through sports and to strive for improvement and excellence. Further, youth compete as individuals, coming together with a sense of teamwork, camaraderie, and support for one another. At Full Armor Sports, the reality is achievements, failures, wins, and losses eventually fade away. But the bonds team members form through competition evolve into relationships lasting forever. Learn more at fullarmorsports.com.
All right. Thank you for joining us. This is 100.7 The Word and Faith Family Fitness. I'm your host, Jason Lupo. Thank you for joining us today as we talked about the brain and the remarkable, intelligent design that God has for us and how our brains work and how it relates back to our thinking, our jobs, our everyday lives, and our fitness. That we have to consistently reinforce the positive behaviors and techniques that we have in our lives, and also for our kids. We have to make sure that we are reinforcing in our kids' lives, in our kids' brains, what is truly normal, what is truly biblical. And we have to keep reinforcing that. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, our brains, our thoughts, our minds are going to produce fruit. And the question for today is, what fruit is your mind or your thoughts creating? And so join us next week. We're going to talk about sport as a vehicle for positive youth development. It's a topic that I love. We're going to talk about it. We're going to incorporate some of the stuff that we talked about today with helpful hints for parents about how to talk to their kids about their athletic events, which I know is a hot topic. It can be kind of, a head-butting adventure between kids and parents. And so we're going to breach that topic next week. Once again, this is Faith Family Fitness. We are every Saturday at 9 a.m. on 100.7 The Word.
This has been Faith Family Fitness with Coach Jason Lupo of Full Armor Sports Teams of Colorado Springs. Join him at the same time next week for Faith Family Fitness on the Word 100.7.